All right, there we go. So we are starting a new 6 weeks. I don't know, new grading period, new 6 weeks, whatever you want to call it. This is the second grading period. My grades are, for the most part, done, although you might see some changes here as I submit tomorrow morning and turn everything in. Like setting a minimum grade, you know, if somebody has a 30, then they might end up with a 50 or something like that. But we are still in the, I don't know, middle or getting close to the end of Unit 2 on evolution. And so today is the 19th. You can see it's a pretty simple day, although we will be working on a virtual lab that's going to take us 2 days in class. It takes time to do this. So I'm going to put y'all in groups again with the breakout rooms, and you'll work together. But I want to cover some notes on the evidence for evolution first. And so this virtual lab right here, you'll see it says it again right here, virtual lab, a whale in the making. Okay, so we will be doing that for 2 days in a row. And if you keep going forward, Friday, you guys have your test on Unit 2. So we've got an evolution test on Unit 2. You already actually have some grades in there for Unit 2 because I graded that quiz from Friday, from Thursday for you guys, I guess. I graded it yesterday, and I went ahead and put that in the grade book. And so you already have a quiz there if you want to take a look at that grade. We might talk about that more on Wednesday because people maybe didn't take it late. So, but I'll turn that on today for late ones. Our essential question for today, at least, is what is a whale's closest land relative, and how do we know? That's what the lab is going to answer. And my little note to you guys is everyone starts over with grades today. No matter how well or poorly you performed the last 6 weeks, you get a brand new chance to improve. Begin by studying for our evolution test on October 23rd or the 26th. Okay. After that, we will start. I believe genetics is next, but I haven't really looked at that unit yet because that one won't happen until Tuesday for you guys. So, any questions on that stuff right there? We are going to use your computers later on, but first we're going to talk about evolution and the evidence for evolution. And so we're going to close your computers and we're going to write stuff down. So paper and pencil. Hopefully you're keeping a notebook for biology. That would be my suggestion. And even when you're home, I would take those notes and write stuff down. That's how our brains work to understand and remember stuff. And it is called evidence for evolution. Evidence of evolution. I'm going to go ahead and mark y'all who are here as present in person. Turn the volume up on this one. Jordan, right? Yeah. Okay, I'm just making sure I got all the names right. All right. Micaiah. No. Micaiah, Jordan, Lucero, Phoenix. But no. Okay, Kai was home. Hannah. Luis. Hayden. And Emilio. Right there. All right. So I made that picture a few years ago, and I just kept it. And we can see one thing that's going to be kind of important about fossils. We're going to leave fossils for tomorrow, I think. But in general, as you start to dig underground, are you going forward in time or back in time? Okay. You're going back, right? Because older things are lower because new dirt settles on top of old dirt. And so, if I can draw now, really I can't. Are we going to work? Nothing? Yeah. Okay, so that's why the little person skeleton is up higher than my attempt at the dinosaur skeleton. Because as you start digging down underground, then you can kind of go back in time, right? New dirt settles on top of old dirt. And which is why things and canyons like the Grand Canyon are so helpful in understanding all this. Can you put your feet away? Okay. Because in a canyon, you can actually see those layers, okay? And that would be evidence, but we're gonna leave fossils for later on. Okay, we gotta talk about what it means to say a theory, what is a scientific theory? And my notebook is right here. All right, so people misunderstand the words scientific theory, and they tend to think of it, and they never have like a biology class that explains this, as just an idea that maybe is true or not true. And that's not like even a word that we use. We're writing stuff down for now. We're gonna figure stuff out later on. So on the right-hand side, let's come up with a definition for a theory, okay? It is, I'll put it over here, scientific. Okay. It would be the best explanation for all known evidence. So the scientific theory tries to explain what we can see. Well, then we would need to go back and think, well, what are those pieces of evidence that build up this theory of evolution? Please, you can keep your, if you don't, I know it was there when you came in, but if you want to just put it down next to you, that's fine also. It's entirely fine. Somebody in last class probably did that. All right, so let's come up with 4 pieces of evidence. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, we were just talking about one. It was the fossil record. The record of all the fossils that we have found, that we can try to build up some sort of idea. If we haven't found all fossils, and most organisms don't fossilize, they tend to get decomposed and scavenged, but we have found quite a bit. Okay, so we also have morphology, or shapes and structures. You can look at 2 organisms and you can think, hey, those 2 organisms, they're different species, but they have tons of similarities. Well, then they're probably close relatives. Not always, but they might be. We also have this thing called biogeography. The combination of biology and evolution with geography and maps and where things are located and why are they located where they are, and could they be located in another place or why aren't they? And finally, we have what we're going to call molecular analysis, or we're talking about DNA here, deoxyribonucleic acid. I like teaching evolution after I've taught DNA because it makes things a lot easier, but I'm going to do my best to explain because I want to start off with that one. Those 4 things, along with lots of other stuff that we're not covering, that's our evidence. And so this theory of evolution is how we explain what's going on. Well, organisms change over time, new species show up, some go extinct, so we have this theory. What happens to the theory if we come up with new evidence? If we come up with new evidence like 5, aliens and magic, if we find evidence of aliens and magic, what happens to the theory? Say what?
It's like gone.
I wouldn't say it's gone. It'll change. It's fine to change theories. We change theories all the time. We changed the theory of evolution when we figured out how to look at DNA sequences. Now we don't have that evidence, so it doesn't work. And we're going to keep it as it is, at least for now. Which is where I struggle with the term belief. You guys ever heard like to believe in evolution? Like that, like it's a common phrase to say I believe or I don't believe. That has nothing to do with it. If you stop believing in the moon, does it cease to be a thing? Our beliefs don't affect the outside world, right? And so I don't use the term as it relates to this. Because whether or not somebody believes in this doesn't change the evidence that we've found. And so I really try to avoid that term believe when it comes to evolution, and I just teach it in the sense of we have scientific evidence, and this is an explanation for that. Let's start off with molecular analysis and see what that means, even though that y'all haven't really learned about DNA, it's not from me. So, any questions on that? All right, so DNA is a molecule that looks like this, and it's inside our cells, and it kind of controls what our cells do, and it gives us our traits of our hair color, our eye color, our skin color, our height, things like that. It can also cause genetic disease and cancer, and you can get mutations and mistakes, and those happen like all the time. We're all full of these mutations, and sometimes they're bad, and then somebody gets cancer, and sometimes they don't mean anything at all. This is a cladogram of the great apes. Okay, which direction is time going on this? Up, right, and that's just generally the way that I like to draw them. Time is going up, and here is us, Homo sapiens. Okay, and here are our two closest relatives. We actually have two, bonobos and chimps. Have y'all ever seen a bonobo? They look like a chimpanzee. Right? There's no way you can tell the difference. In fact, at the zoo here, if you've ever been, we don't have chimpanzees, we have bonobos. They look just like chimpanzees. And then gorillas, and then orangutans. So these are the great apes. I could have put gibbons on here, but they're a little bit smaller, and so they're not always tossed into that group. DNA has a sequence to it. There's 4 letters. Anybody know the 4 letters that are in DNA? We will cover this in great detail. It's A, T, G, and C. Okay, and it stands for these molecules, and it allows you to store information. So let's say we had a sequence here of A, T, A, C, A, G. That's a piece of DNA that makes a human, all right? And because it's the information, and it stands for like that molecule right there, right? Well, way back here in that organism, it led to this organism, and this, 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 and this. And as organisms were reproducing and making new DNA to give to those offspring, mistakes happen, mutations happen. And let's say mutation happened right here and right here. So that would be there, there, and there. So in this ancestor of us that led to humans, a mutation happened, and then another mutation happened. If you go back in time from humans to the common ancestor of us and chimpanzees, how many differences would you expect? How many mutations do you pass through? 2. And so if we go over here, maybe we see something like A, G, C, A, G. Okay? How many are different? See? That one and that one. There's 2 differences. But if we were to compare chimpanzees and bonobos, how many differences would there be? 1. Because there's been less time, that means less mutations, and maybe it would be something like, let's see, A, G, and I'm not doing this perfectly, and that's okay, T, A, G. Now there's probably 3 between humans and bonobos, but that's okay. I'm going to try to make it work. A, C, C, A, G. So we would also have mutations here, 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 and then here, and then there. If we were to predict from this, based on how far back in time the common ancestor of humans and gorillas was, would that number of differences be more or less than the number of differences between us and chimpanzees? It'd be a lot more, right? And I see 1, 2, 3, we could even probably put one like this right here, and it'll be like 4 differences. I'm not going to try to write it because I'll probably get confused. This allows us to tell how long it's been. We can use this and say, okay, I know mutation happens at like this rate. So we're going to go back and say, we split from them about 8 to 10 million years ago. But we split from gorillas something like 20 million years ago. And we can build cladographs. So DNA is a huge piece of evidence, especially because now we can use modern technology to like sequence DNA really, really quickly. It doesn't take long. That's not very expensive. So that's piece one of evidence for evolution using DNA. Piece two is biogeography, okay? The distribution and range of a species is based on their evolutionary history and adaptations. So I'm going to draw a map here that I've drawn before, and you might have seen it in one of my videos, or here in person, like that. And I want to think about one organism, and we got to think about before people got in the way, and I picked this one for a reason, just because it's kind of easy to understand. And it is the old bison, like a buffalo, right? So they lived here a long time ago. We still have some of them, although most of them are dead. Bison lived in that range, okay? And they lived there for a certain reason. Why didn't their range spread further to the north? What would have prevented them from living further to the north? What? Predators, maybe predators. I'm thinking more about environmental things, though. Does that make sense? Because biogeography thinks more about environment instead of like competition, predation kind of stuff. It's a really good idea, but what is the environment like up here? Yeah, too cold. Okay. Well, then why didn't they spread further to the south? Too hot. Bison are large herbivore, like herd organisms. They need open plains, right? They need like big space blocks of grass. Why didn't they spread further to the west? Mountains, right? The Rocky Mountains are right there. Why didn't they spread further to the east? Is there another range of mountains over there? Which one? There is a river, okay, and they would have trouble crossing the Mississippi River and then the Appalachian Mountains right there. And so there, you know, either or both, whatever it is. But bison live there because they have to live there. If they had the traits and characteristics that would allow them to live somewhere else, then they would live somewhere else or they wouldn't be alive at all. So biogeography shows us like these organisms evolved in this area because why would they evolve for this area if they didn't evolve in this area? That gets confusing because over long periods of time, you got plate tectonics moving things. And so when you combine the fossil record with plate tectonics and long periods of time, you get some weird things. Llamas. Llamas live down in South America. That's their native spot. Now you can bring a llama up here, but before humans started doing that, that's where llamas live. Llamas have a close relative, one really close relative. And I'm not talking about alpacas because they live down there and they're just type of llama. Anybody know what type of large mammal with a long neck, but not as long as a giraffe, would be a close relative of a llama? Camel. Where do camels live? They live kind of, and I probably didn't do the best map over here, maybe parts of Africa and Asia. Camels. Okay, so llamas live here, and their closest relatives live right there. That doesn't make any sense, right? Because if they're close relatives, wouldn't you expect them to be close together? But it's been a long time, and species A, species B, species C, species D, and species E that would have been close relatives have all died. They've all gone extinct, and so now we don't have all those other relatives that would show us how that connection happened. And so these all went extinct. So now we can look at llamas and camels and say, yes, they are the closest relatives, but all the other ones that would have connected them and we could maybe see that connection have all died. And then we get the issue of species A and species B. Could they be close relatives? Or what if we find a fossil right there and we find the exact same fossil right there from the exact same time period? From like 50, I don't know how long that would be, like, I don't know, 50 to 100 million years ago. And we explain why we would find a fossil of an organism here and the exact same one right there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, right, because it was all kind of crushed together. And so they would have been in the same spot and they would have been in the same area. So geologic time and like millions of years can kind of mess with our understanding of this, but we can still make it fit. So biogeography is kind of like a combination of those. I've got 2 more pieces of evidence, but I would rather leave those for tomorrow and kind of get started on the lab today. Any questions on molecular analysis or biogeography? You guys put your, like I said, that wasn't very much. I never like the notes to be too much. Open your computers up, and you should have the assignment ready to go. For now, just watch. I can't put you with somebody else. If I'm able to, I'll give you my computer and try to log you in and have you work, but you can also just see what we're going to do and work on it tonight and tomorrow, and Monday. It's not due until Friday. All right, it should be, if I put it on, and I did this last night, so I think it is. Okay, virtual lab, and it's called A Whale in the Making. I used to do this in class with paper slips and my lab groups and things like that. And I don't know if that's going to work, but I will put y'all in groups, and that's going to make this take a lot less time. So we're opening up this, and then it looks like it takes a while. Everybody's logging in, so I will give y'all a second to get that open. Got it. Okay, everybody here has filled in the form. I was just checking the attendance page, so it looks like we are good with my online people. All right. Here's what the assignment says. I'm going to read it to y'all, then I'm going to show you what to do. You're going to be doing lots of counting, okay? Okay, a whale in the making. It says whales of family Cetaceae. We'll cover taxonomy and rankings and things like that. Basically, family Cetaceae is all of the whales. Are a group of aquatic swimming mammals that science says have evolved from walking land mammals with legs roughly 50 million years ago, okay? So whales would include things like you've got like orca whales, sperm whales, humpback whales, beluga whales, small dolphins are whales, even the narwhal with that long like nose-looking thing, which is really a modified tooth. Those are all whales. Okay. It's one of its teeth. Yeah, one of its teeth randomly grows forward like that, and they use them for like battling during like trying to find a mate, battling other males. I think so. Yeah, it is. It's weird. It's a tooth. Family Cetaceae is a diverse group of organisms that include the largest animal to have ever lived on the planet. That's the blue whale, and other filter-feeding whales like the humpback whale pictured. And those whales have like these mesh plates that are called baleen that allow them to filter like krill and little tiny things. And so they eat a whole bunch of little things. It includes toothed whales like orcas and dolphins, as well as the unicorn-like narwhal, which is actually a tooth. So they live way up north. Assuming that scientists are right, and this is our objective, are right about whales having evolved from land-dwelling and walking mammals, they are, we should be able to use this evidence to create a cladogram that will let us identify the modern-day closest relative of whales that does still live on land. In this lab, you will compare DNA sequences from a group of organisms to identify that closest relative. These are the organisms we are going to compare. This is small, but you have the ability to manipulate and move this page. We have a cow, We have 3 whales: the right whale, the sperm whale, and the porpoise. Those are abbreviated as RT whale and SP whale. And this would be just like a little dolphin. We have a giraffe, a hippo, a camel, a cow, a deer, a pig, a rhino, and a peccary, which is a type of wild pig. Okay, so we have all of these organisms, and we have a DNA sequence for all of them. Somewhere in their DNA, in the same spot, there is this DNA sequence, and I have it for each one. So there's like the right whale starts off with an A, and so that the porpoise starts off with an A. This page, by the way, and this is really going to be very helpful. Each one of these can be moved and made bigger, like that, so that you can look at them a little bit easier, okay, because you're going to be comparing them. On this page, we have data table 1. This is the table of differences in DNA between the 2 species. So if I put this a little bit bigger right here, let's say in this square that the pointer is on right now, which 2 organisms would that square be comparing and counting up the differences of? Which one? Cows and fur. Good. And so it's about using the table and finding the right ones. The ones in gray are blacked out because that would just double the whole thing. So only the ones in white. So this one would be the camel and the giraffe. This one would be the deer and the hippo. And you're counting up the differences between every single organism. If you get this table done and you have all of these differences, then you can make a smaller table of organisms that are close relatives. These are all of the combinations of close relatives. And I did the first one for you. The porpoise and the sperm whale have between 2 and 4 differences because they're really close relatives, which makes sense because they're both whales. And then right here, if we have this table, we should be able to build this cladogram by understanding that these 4 are close relatives because they branch back there. These 3 are close relatives because they branch right there. These 2 have no close relatives, and these 2 are close relatives down there. That's the goal. I do have 3 questions here at the end. What did you identify as whale's closest land mammal relative? What is your evidence for this claim? Provide at least 2 numbers. That would be the differences. Do some research. What are 2 more pieces of evidence that whales evolved from land mammals? Think about behavioral and structural homologies, which we'll talk about tomorrow. So what you guys need to do today, when I put you into your breakout group, you should have about 3 or 4 people, and you tell your group and you say, okay, I'm going to do the peccary and the deer. And I would just take that, and you can even line them up just, you have to put one on top of the other one. So like that, count up the number of differences, and then put it in the table. And then tell your group, I've got the one for peccary and deer, and then you put the number in there. And that way, not everybody in your group is doing all of them. You're splitting it up between 3 or 4 people. Does that make sense? Any questions for me? I'm going to tell them, they hopefully heard all of this, and they'll be doing the exact same thing. And in fact, some of them will be in your group. In this time, you don't really have to share your screen. You certainly could share your screen, and somebody could share theirs, especially with this, so that everybody else can kind of make sure that they get all the numbers. But I want everybody doing their part to count up the number of differences. It takes forever if you're trying to do this on your own. But if you're doing this with 3 or 4 people, it can go really, really fast. Okay? I'll put you on breakout groups, and we can get started. Any questions from you guys about how to do the lab? My mask keeps moving, and I don't like it. Okay, breakout groups. Everybody work together, and it goes a lot faster. Oh, y'all will need to join the Google Meet as well, and that way you can be in a breakout room too. So. That happens to me all the time. All right, I'm going to go ahead, and I think people that are just, let's see, we're going to go up to 4 rooms. 3, 3, 3. There's Jordan. Okay, we do have an hour for this. Usually I would do this over 2 to 3 days in class, and so I'm not sure if it's going to take like just today because I haven't done this in block schedule. But there will be a lot of counting. As long as you keep working, then it should go just fine. Jordan can go right there. All right. Okay, Jordan, you're in. Lucero, you're in one. Phoenix is in one. We have Luis. Hayden's in one. Or you can move around all the organisms so that you can select two to kind of make them bigger. Or are you talking? You said it's going to do. We get numbers from everybody. Next.
Please.
Okay, so we can kind of see what is going on.